Welcome everyone to the showdown between Bretonnia, who shall be led by the dreaded High Prophetess, I think of life, because I have GOTREK and Henry La Massif, so probably some healing is in order here. And today, guys, we're going to be facing off against Norsca, who shall be led by the Marauder Chieftain, not going to be Wulfric, and I believe he is going to be on a big old thick mammoth. So as far as the builds goes, it's going to be a little bit mixed forces, trying out a couple of the newer units, not newer in terms of just being a fresh unit, but basically units that have had some changes. So if you look here in the back, the companions over here do actually have a bonus versus large now, making them one of the better cav units in the game, in my opinion. I've had some pretty good success with them. Granted, they still, of course, have the pitfalls of any unit that's quite pricey. If they get focused, you can lose a lot of value, but still a very good unit with their bonus versus large. Now, for the rest of the army, it's going to be a front line of peasant mobs who are going to be getting eaten by werewolves for the lady, and it looks like we have some battle pilgrims here in the middle, beast slayers of Bastion, or however the hell you say that. We also do have GOTREK. So GOTREK's coming in with his axe. And Bretonnia's problem historically has been dealing with like single entities and monsters and things like that. So I figured GOTREK would be a fun addition. I don't know if I'd call him like super competitive in this matchup, but you know what? He's fun to use. I've been reading the books, so let's give it a try. So in the back, we do also have 4 groups of peasant archers who do pretty well against skin wolves and some of the single entities. And I mean, mammoths don't have like a ton of armor. I think it's like 70, give or take. So there are some good targets for them, and I certainly like using them. So some spears in the back. And as far as the cav goes, we do have the companions, and up in the sky, we do have some Pegasus Knights, plus Henry La Massif, and Prophetess of Life, like I said, and a Grail here in the center to give me that sweet, sweet leadership. So for the force of Norsca on the front line, it's going to be Marauders, a bunch of Skin Wolves, the armored premier condom brand of the old world, and on top of that, we do also have a Shaman Sorcerer Metal for Plague of Rust synergy with some of the low or high DPS units that don't really have the best AP. He's got a Skin Wolf Werkin, a Marauder Chieftain, and let's see what else. It looks like some dogs. So he does have Norscan Ice Wolves, and on the backside of the map, he does have some Norscan Ice Wolves as well. So who let the dogs out? King of the Dead let the dogs out as usual. So let's see how this game goes, guys, and have some fun. A little bit of positioning here. Going to be squaring up my forces. I almost got a pick with my Pegasus Knights, but he was just barely able to kind of turn that corner there and get away. So I was like, damn it, that would have been such a nice pick to get rid of those hounds. Granted, they're just warhounds, so not the most important thing in the world, but chasing them really wouldn't be a great idea because I'd rather have my Pegasus Knights in position for the main battle that is to come. So the peasant mobs and company getting ready. Some archers are loosing their arrows. They're like the one-eyed archer in Lord of the Rings who lets the arrow go against the Uruk-hai a little bit too early, but nonetheless sending a message here against these foul Norscan warhounds that are going to be falling back now as that focus fire does come in from those guys. So the Norscan horde advancing a little bit, werewolves, a big blitz coming in, certainly going to be scary, but it's really going to take some good engagements here with the Pegasus Knights. They're kind of like one of those all-in units, very much a glass cannon, but if you can get those good engagements and chase off something that's of high value, it can certainly feel very, very good. So my archers are going to be scooting up here in just a moment. Probably will be shooting skin wolves. They still only have 70 armor, so it's not like they're insane. Plus, they're also weak to fire damage. So the fire arrows can do some okay damage against them. So GOTREK's going to be scooting up as well. He's basically just seeking his doom at the hand of the Marauder Chieftain or the Skin Wolf Werkin, looking to fight some of those big beasties. So over here, it looks like there's going to be some Marauders and dogs fighting peasants. So I pull in the Pegasus Knights, trying to get a free charge, but I do kind of get baited a little bit in that engagement. Granted, I pull back immediately, so the peasants are going to take the sacrifice, and most of the Pegasus Knights should be able to get back, as the peasant mobs did screen that situation somewhat well. But more dogs over the top are going to be able to catch some Pegasus Knights, so some of them might get caught on the ground, but for the most part, the main unit does get back up in the air. So here we have Henry and we have the companions and GOTREK all beating on the Marauder Chieftain, getting some okay damage in, but now we have a big old pit fight. So the dogs are coming in, the Skin Wolves, I have the Beast Slayers. So on paper, this looks like a pretty good engagement for me. You know, the Beast Slayers are saturated amongst Skin Wolves. I have the companions, but for some reason the companions are just getting murdered by something. I did not know how they were taking this much damage this quick, but perhaps the Plague of Rust really making the Skin Wolves that much more effective. Now in the mainline fights, Battle Pilgrims are doing very well against Marauders. We have some peasants fending off dogs. And on the other side, it looks like a bit of a collapse as the Men-at-Arms are sent in, and the Pegasus Knights actually looks like they kind of got caught and weren't able to quite get away. So very unfortunate situation, but balance of power is somewhat even. It's a close battle at this point. Over here, Henry is able to get a really good pick, so he jumps on the Shaman Sorcerer. Getting rid of the caster this early in the game would be very nice. And of course, the Beast Slayers fighting here in the pits against the infantry. Not the best for them, but they are fighting against Skin Wolves as well, so hopefully they'll be able to take out a couple Skin Wolf models, which would be very, very efficient. GOTREK has popped GOTREK's Doom to give him the good combat stats, and he's just chopping down barbarians, fighting with the Grail here. And you can see he fells a mighty Skin Wolf with his great Axe of Grimnir. Definitely a very, very cool thematic engagement right there. But the bounce power is kind of falling out of my favor a little bit, interestingly enough, mainly because probably the Pegasus Knights just got crumped so quick. He was able to really swarm them with the Hounds, and like I said, they're pretty squishy themselves. They only have 26 melee defense. So right here you can see that we do have Henry falling back. He was able to goon out the Sorcerer, so that was a really nice pick, and he took barely any damage for it. So I would say that was one of the better trades I've had in the battle so far. In the front line, Beast Slayers are getting a regrowth, and they're fighting against a horde of Marauders. Again, not a great situation for them. But GOTREK's doing well. He's hunting down a lot of these werewolves who are being forced back. 15 models here on these guys, and 16 on those bad boys. So far, GOTREK doing pretty good for his people. And the Grail piece is basically just keeping these guys fighting. Normally the Beast Slayers and these men-at-arms and other troops probably would have turned tail and ran by now, but with the support of the Grail, they're going to keep going. Now we do secure this side of the battlefield, so the men-at-arms and company are able to fend back the Marauders, and now you can see the Peasant Bowmen are going to be unleashing a torrent of fire arrows into these troops. And with that, the bounce fire does normalize a little bit. The Shaman Sorcerer is still running, and Henry coming in for that juicy fight here. A little bit greedy for sure, but he does have that bonus first large. I'm hoping he'll be able to do some good work against the Chieftain, and he's getting some good damage in. Granted, probably should have brought him more into this blob fight to have him fight with GOTREK and the Beast Slayers and these other troops, because now, though I got some good damage, the Skin Wolf was able to react very quickly, and he has the Deadly Onslaught and Plague of Rust is active, so Henry is certainly very, very squishy at this point with the Plague of Rust putting down 55 armor. The 1-2 punch coming in, so he's going to be pulling back, but that's damage that, health I really, really need in this battle, and fighting in the open field might have been a little bit of a mistake here. I could have been fighting here and getting terror routes on the Marauders and things like that, so I think that was a pretty huge mistake, despite the damage I did get. So Henry's back up in the sky. We're going to be dropping some heals. GOTREK over here, GOTREK. I don't really know how to say it correctly. Do you guys know the actual proper pronunciation? I think I've heard it in many ways, but nonetheless, he's going to be going after the werewolves, able to chop down a few. You can see in his wake, he leaves 3 skin wolves, so certainly very, very proud of himself there, although he certainly wants his doom. And the Bretonnians do have a surge coming from the distance, so Peasant Mob's going to be intercepting these guys, and it looks like there's going to be some dreaded fire magic. Oh, that's how we did it, that dirty dog. Piercing bolts coming in, doing a bunch of damage to my Grail. I was wondering where that burst came from when we were playing the game, but it was the piercing bolts coming down on the Grail right there, and now the men-at-arms and these other forces coming in, and GOTREK is going to be going fisticuffs with the Marauder Chieftain. Quite happy about that situation. With their towns coming in, Henry's fighting as well, but this is the problem. Earlier in the game, I needed to land Henry amongst the troops when I actually had the Beast Slayers in better numbers, so him and GOTREK could fight back to back, but in this case, he's a little bit surrounded. I don't really have the troop saturation, so the Hounds and these other troops are able to surround Henry. I have some Peasant Bowmen shooting in and a couple other troops like that. And of course, GOTREK doesn't really care about being surrounded. He's actually rather tough to kill, but he's going to be, chopping down some dudes. So in the back, a lot of my forces are falling apart. This engagement going very, very poorly. So like I said, I probably needed to kind of get into a better engagement earlier. Henry La Massif is going to be going down here, getting swarmed by werewolves. The Prophetess of Life going down in a hail of fire here as Henry falls, and GOTREK will finally be meeting his doom. So good for him. At least there is a positive outcome to come from this game as GOTREK does glorious battle here with the Mammoth. Oh yeah, look at this slow-mo. Summoning some powers of the ancestor gods perhaps to get a little bit of healing, but very, very cool cinematic right there. As he does continue to fight this Mammoth, but nonetheless, the Mammoth still has a bonus for his infantry, so it's going to be able to do some really big damage to GOTREK as it gets its last attack right there, and he dodges it. 3,000 HP here, certainly a very uphill battle for GOTREK, but he does have 50 melee defense. He's very, very tanky. Certainly doesn't go quietly, but alas, he is going to fall to the Marauder Chieftain and the Horde of Werewolves. So hey, upside, right? He met his doom. Downside, the Bretonnians were routed by a horde of wild werewolves. So in the end, the game came down, I think, to a couple poor decisions and poor engagements. Firstly, my companions of Quenelles, or however you say that, were used very poorly. I thought they would actually last a lot longer in that center engagement, but it was obvious that I should have been much more careful with them, let the infantry take a beating and pick at weaker parts of the army with both them and the Pegasus Knights. So the rest of the army and the rest of the play was fine. Henry's play was okay. He hunted down the Shaman Sorcerer and those other troops, but in the end, GOTREK plus, or not GOTREK, but the companions plus the Pegasus Knights were used very poorly, and that ended up costing me the game. So very well played to King of the Dead. Very, very solid, nice werewolf army there. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this Bretonnia versus Norsca game. And aside from that, guys, we will see you on the other side. Take care.